You're listening to Simple Roots Wellness episode number 197. And today, we're interviewing an Enneagram 7 on what health looks like for them.
Welcome to Simple Roots Radio with Alexa Sherm. Alexa believes that simplicity in life is the key to achieving true and lasting health. And now your host, Alexa Sherm.
Welcome back to this podcast. As always, my name's Alexa, and this is the place to get healthy, live happy, and find more joy. I'm so glad you're here because today I have none other than my sister on the show. Yes, we're quite different, but all the same, and we love each other deeply. Sometimes we can bicker, but mostly we laugh. So I'm so glad that you're here today in the middle of the Enneagram series. She is an Enneagram Type 7, and I'm going to be asking her all the questions about what health looks like for her, what struggles she's had with it, how she's overcome some of this, and really what rhythms in her life has worked to help make her a healthier and happier human being. So we're going to break all of that down. Of anyone else in this world, I've been with her the longest and watched her journey the longest. So I do challenge her maybe in a deeper way than the other guest, but I think it's going to be really good because for me, Enneagram Type 7s and teaching them healthy practices has been a challenge. And you're going to learn more about that inside this podcast. But like I said, today is all about Enneagram Type 7s. Yes, we're in the Enneagram series, which is all about knowing yourself deeply enough to know how to care for yourself. And that really is the true definition of self-care. Not all these fizzy bath bombs and massages, things that 7s really do enjoy, but it's really knowing yourself on that deep, deep level. And so that's what I hope to do in this Enneagram series. So if you want to learn more about that, make sure you head on over to episode number 180, where I teach you all about the true definition of self-care and how to find your Enneagram number. Then, if you haven't listened to episode number 193, where I dive into the solo show on Enneagram Type 7, make sure you either stop this and do it now or listen to it after this show, because I think it will bring more clarification. And along with that, I have a free handout for you all about Enneagram Type 7s and how to implement this into your life. That can be found at simplerootswellness.com/194. So make sure you head on over there to do that. But for now, let's dive right into the show and start interviewing my sister, Whitney Bowen, on Enneagram Type 7. Welcome to the show. You're so glad to be back on the podcast.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, but we're really talking about something that you actually do love today. And that's the Enneagram.
I love the Enneagram.
I'm pretty certain no one loves the Enneagram more than Enneagram 7s. Do you feel like there's truth to that?
So 7s love themselves, but I think it's fascinating learning about other people too. Like I like to know how other people work too. So it's not just like the 7 narcissism coming out. I mean, I think I genuinely like to know about others.
Right. Okay. And it has helped our relationship because if you've listened to the podcast before, then you know we've recorded a few podcasts together. We can bicker a little bit. But I feel like the Enneagram and understanding each other has really helped our relationship.
Yes. So I'm going to tell the listeners what you and I do. So I will look up like couples, like if you're a 2 and you're married to a 7, this is what your relationship looks like. And that's how I know how a relationship works is I pretend that we are married.
Right. We can fight like an old married couple. But it has helped. Okay, so you're an Enneagram 7. Give a brief overview about what an Enneagram 7 looks like and what you love about it and what you struggle with it.
Okay, so 7s love to have fun. Like I would say that's our like drive in life is to make everything fun and like find the enjoyment in life. Very optimistic people. Independent. So like 7s like to, I think, be around people and like I get my energy, from being with others, but I also appreciate being alone too and doing some things alone.
Because you're very independent, right? 7s tend to be very independent.
Yeah. So like digging deeper into the Enneagram. So I like to do things alone, but not without distraction. So I think there's like a difference between being alone and being like distracted with like, I'm going to go shopping by myself or I'm going to, watch a movie by myself or something like that, as opposed to being alone and just kind of like being in quiet. Like that's different. And that would be I don't know, like anti-7, I guess, like not something sevens enjoy, but that's getting really deep into that. So yeah, fun loving, I would say that's the goal, avoiding pain. So yes. So pain and boredom are, kind of on a level playing field, I feel like, with a 7. So doing anything to avoid either one of those. And I think that's where like the optimism comes in, is just, you just like naturally become optimistic because you're just naturally trying to avoid negative thoughts and feelings.
Right. Which brings us to the weaknesses.
Yes. So weaknesses, I think like the biggest thing that I struggle with a 7, or like the thing I'm most ashamed about being a 7, or I don't know, like I have to be really aware of, is like the 7s have the like greatest tendency to be narcissists or have like those self-serving traits. So like just trying to be really aware of like others before yourself. So it's not that I don't care about others. Like it's not like narcissism in that, but it's that immediate like trigger response of taking care of myself first and then thinking about others, if that makes sense. So it's not like I'm like, if I hurt your feelings or something, that I wouldn't feel bad about that. That's not what it is. It's that, I don't know, like maybe not being as thoughtful of others immediately.
Which has been a huge thing in our relationship. Is I'm a 2, so I'm overly perceptive to a fault of other people's feelings, even before other people think that they have those feelings or problems. And you're the opposite extreme, where it takes you just a little bit longer to perceive those things, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not that you don't care. It's just like you said, you get mad before I've even recognized that there's a problem.
Right. So like, yeah, like when we're all together and we have all of our kids together, you always notice like, oh, like so-and-so's crying, or like so-and-so's hungry, before it's like even registered in my brain that anything's going on.
Right.
And then I think that like, that was huge, because I think you always felt like, oh, like, why am I taking care of Whitney's kids? Well, it's not that, it's just that like you've done it before I could even like react to them.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
Right. I had the problem solved before you even recognized it.
Right.
Yeah. So you have been quoted as saying that you feel like, I don't exactly know how you say this, but you feel like the Enneagram 7 is the worst one on the Enneagram. Or what do you say?
Yeah, I just feel like the narcissism thing like is so hard for me, because I don't feel like I'm narcissistic, but I have to really think about like at what points am I being selfish or self-serving. And yeah, and I feel like, I think too, I was thinking about this today, like that surface level, like everything is so surface level with a 7, that sometimes I feel like with 7s it's like you're a token fun person, or like we need you to like lighten the mood or whatever, but there's not a lot of depth, and I don't feel like that's true. It's just, that's kind of how it comes across. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right. And just to go back to that, to the whole Enneagram thing first, is to say that I feel like anyone who is that specific number thinks that's the worst one on the Enneagram. Like we always think that what we are has to be the worst one because of the traits that come out from that. So just so everyone's clear, whatever number you are, it's not the worst one. Like everyone struggles with their number. Because sometimes I think, oh, I wish I was a 7 because I feel like that's more fun and it's more engaging and they're better at telling stories and, like that kind of thing. So I feel like some people, we always wish we were something else in some ways. And so we have to like learn, okay, how can we use our number in health? But going back to that, what you just said, you have the ability to go deep, and like 7s are really wise and super creative, especially in health, but it has to be willing to like break through that barrier of what you think will be painful to get there. Right. Like you have to be willing to like push through that rather than like joke about it or, just kind of keep it surface level, which when it comes to health, this is when I was kind of doing the healthy handout for a 7, you had to sit down with me because I really did find that 7s I thought was going to be one of the easier ones was actually the more difficult ones. And it's almost because you don't even recognize the problem.
Yeah. So I think 7s are all about like enjoying life's pleasures. So it's not that like, I don't think 7s maybe see a problem. It's just that the addressing the problem is not worth it. I think it's just that like life's supposed to be enjoyed and I'd rather just eat whatever I want and live it up, or, like, I don't know, have that, second piece of cake or, whatever, like life's too short, might as well. Right. Like that. I think that's the 7 is like, life's too short. Try it all.
Instant gratification almost.
Yeah. And so I put that like that, and then like the avoidance of pain, like exercising sucks, so I mean, there isn't really an exercise. Like you have to push yourself at some point in exercising. And part of pushing yourself is it's going to be painful and uncomfortable. And so I think that's where like 7s have a hard time with persevering through that.
Right. Because I think sometimes just knowing you, just to go back to 7s, I feel like 7s have very high self-confidence in general. 7s are like one of the least likely to look down upon themselves, which I think is really, really, really useful. On the other hand, though, 7s have that instant gratification, like fulfilling thing, almost like, I don't want to say rebellious, but in a way, whenever we talk about health, it's like you want it, but yet you want what's in front of you more.
Right. I think too, like 7s have a hard time finishing things. So that's part of the 7 too, is they will get bored with things and then move on to the next thing. And so in terms of sticking with something, like, when you think about sticking with like an exercise program, you have a 7 who doesn't like uncomfortable situations. So if exercise is uncomfortable, plus you have a 7 who is not great at finishing things. I feel like it's just like all of these things add up into not exercising. Or, I don't know. Like, I think too, I'm going to talk about like me giving up gluten. I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago. It like took like 3 or 4 years for me to like really settle into it. And I had to associate that feeling of I don't feel well when I eat this. But it took me like 3 years to like really settle into like, yeah, this legitimately is not good for me personally. And so I don't know, with that comes restriction too. And so there's that, like, 7s typically value freedom and, you want all this ability to choose everything. And so then when you have like, things like I don't eat gluten, or I'm not, eating dairy, or whatever you're doing, then that's a restrictive mindset. And it's hard to you have to come at it from a different perspective, I guess, of like, I have to focus on, I feel better not doing this, and I'm not going to do it because it's a rule, or, something like that.
Right. Like you said, it's like for 7s, it's more of the mindset shift, because once you do something and it feels good to you, you generally continue that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like you're not so like 7s aren't so stuck in their head. Like we see some types who talk about the dieting train. Like they can get so stuck on the dieting thing because they're so out of tune with their body. They don't recognize how it's feeling. It's just based on what they've told. Like it's black and white. But 7s tend to see a lot more color. And you are very aware of your body.
Yeah. Like, and I think too, I know if I eat too much sugar over the course of several days, like, my pants might be a little tighter. Like I'm not like, I guess I don't feel as 7s. Yeah. Like that's where that, like, I don't know if it's confidence or whatever it is that I know I did X, Y, and Z. That's why that's why this happened. Or, like I get that. But the problem is it's fleeting. So like, oh yeah, my pants were a little tight. Like, well, that sucked for today, but tomorrow's a new day. Maybe I'll magically get thinner overnight.
Maybe it will just magically disappear.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating about 7s is that you in all of this, like you very live in the moment, which is what food is supposed to be about. Like you really do enjoy life. And I think so many people fear food. So we don't have that. But on the flip side, what I see you doing, and I don't know if this is typical of most 7s or just who you are, is you overplan. Like you plan.
Yeah.
But then the follow through doesn't happen.
Right.
And so it's like sometimes you spend so much time planning without any execution. Like you've wasted all of your energy on planning that you don't have the energy to execute.
Yeah. I feel like sevens can be a little bizarre in that like they do like to plan, but I don't feel like sticking to a plan is always like something that's innate in a seven. And I don't know if some of that is the one, coming out in the seven, a little bit of that planning part, but sevens just, I don't feel like are great at following through with plans, because then I think it becomes like, oh, I've made this plan and now I've boxed myself into a plan, and I also want freedom. So I don't know.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's really to make a seven healthy, we have to combine the two. We have to have a little bit of planning, but not obsessive planning, right? Like it's all about this balance, because
Right.
I look at sevens and think, and just the population in general, and think we're very extreme people. Like we like to go to the extremes, but if we could just bring a seven back in balance where they can enjoy food and have freedom and really just make health who they are,
Yeah.
then you can cut out all this jargon about what you have to do and the restriction and deprivation and starvation that come with that, because that is literally debilitating for a seven, or you'll just run away from that.
Right.
Like you almost rebel at the thought of that.
Right. And I think too, I'm dogging on sevens because I am one, but like sevens are, when they're all in, they're all in. So like, I think once they decide and commit to something, then they do it well, typically, like I think about the few things that in my life that I've actually like followed through with, and it's like, I did it really well. It's just getting to that point where you decide you're going to follow through with it. For me, like in terms of health, I'm not going to eat gluten. Like I made that decision. That was just a personal one for me that I had taken several years to discover, that it just made me feel bad. So I had to like start associating that bad feeling with what I was eating, not because I still like fantasize about like, getting garlic bread or like, pizza and all of these like wonderful things that I'm missing out on.
I love how you're like, I lay awake at night dreaming about garlic bread.
Yes. Like there's a few things that like, if I had like a last meal that I would definitely like
overindulge on.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So when I was doing this research, you kind of led me to this video that told me that is one great way to encourage a seven to move, is the consequence of that, like the pain that it could cause or that it causes. Like you talked about drinking alcohol and how you've learned the hangover is just like the pain of that is not worth it for a seven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like sevens can be on like the more addictive end of, like substance abuse things. Like they would have, maybe more issues with that than some of the other types. And I think some of that is that like, I'm in an attempt to avoid pain, I'm just going to, I'm going to drink or whatever that is. But the way sevens, like some sevens are able to keep that in check is, if I have too many drinks, like I'm going to feel bad tomorrow. And so like that kind of resonated with me because, I think a lot of times people think about like, oh, drinking, like that's fun. And, I'm going to have fun doing that. But then tomorrow is going to be horrible. And so like, I think that's where like sevens keep that in check of, like, I know if I have more than 2 drinks, like I'm going to feel bad tomorrow. And so I don't, because the fun of that moment is not worth, being sick the next day. And it's the same thing for me. It was the same thing with gluten of like, yeah, like that, like, spaghetti and garlic bread would be amazing right now, but it's not worth the way I'm going to feel for the next 3 or 4 days.
Or 14.
Or 14.
Okay. So maybe something for seven is, as you're talking about this, is it's like, I feel like sevens are very, if you're in the moment and things are having fun, that's when you can kind of like get yourself caught up in the moment. But if you really take time to think about it, like, so going back to like, this is just a ridiculous example, but kind of like when it talks about Enneagrams and who's most likely to get a tattoo. Now, I know it's weird that I'm relating this, but like sevens in the moment are likely to get a tattoo. But if you have time to think about it, you're not committal. So like if you think about it, then you start to think about the consequences of that and you really start to wrap your head around it. So I feel like something that has worked well with you, even in giving up gluten, was creating this almost like just a few second thought process before you went into a party or into a situation to like even talk yourself through it or prep yourself for what you were about to get yourself into. So you didn't get caught up in just the social aspect, because that's what I see so often in you is just getting caught up in the social aspect and having fun. And you really do enjoy that, but it's also prepping yourself for what's there so that you can have fun, but you don't have the painful consequence that comes with it. Right.
Right.
I feel like from an outsider watching you, you do kind of talk yourself through before you get yourself into a situation.
Yeah. Like I think that, and maybe that's where the planning comes in with the 7 is, I'm not laying out my like week's meal plans. I probably should be, but I'm not. And it's more of that, like, what does my day look like? Like even today, like leaving the house. Okay. I know like my day's going to be a little busier. What does lunch look like for me? And I need to get better on that of like mapping that out because I think typically, at least for me, like I will make a healthy choice if it's a choice for me. Like I will choose the healthier option, but if I'm pressed for time and I didn't plan ahead, then I'm going to make the easy choice too. So, usually that's like, convenience food or drive through or whatever. So I think, my planning looks more of like day to day, meal to meal, thinking about what I'm going to have. Like I'm good with, given this situation, like I've got really good about like, okay, if I'm at this restaurant, I know what I can eat, right? Like I know what I can have, or, like when I'm at home, like obviously, we're buying things that I can eat. So I'm good at making those decisions. Like those are becoming more of like a reflex thing where I don't, it doesn't take a lot of time to process. I know what it is. But I think, I've always said if I had a chef, at my house 24/7, like I would eat healthy all the time. Like for me, it's not that I don't want to eat healthy food. It's that it's almost too it's too difficult, or I don't want to put the effort into cooking. Like I don't like to cook. So, I don't want to put the effort into it. So I'm just going to take the easier option. Or sometimes it's just, I'm just not going to eat then. Like, I'm just going to skip a meal, which leads to, more unhealthy decisions later in the day when I'm, super hungry. But
yeah, I mean, in general, 7s are super spontaneous and open to new things. I mean, 7s aren't stuck in a diet plan or in something, which can be really valuable because you can be really flexible. And I think one thing that would help a 7 is like you almost need that plan, but like you said, and I think you can get so caught up in these big plans, especially the way the world tells us, like, oh, here's your exercise plan, or here's your diet plan, or here's your 30-day plan. But like your follow through isn't there. So you almost convince yourself it's not going to work before it starts, rather than just saying, okay, here's my vision, because you are visionaries. Here's my vision for what does health look like for me? And like listing out these things make me feel healthy. And then it's like the everyday choosing to wake up and be like, okay, what can I do today to make me feel good? Like not focusing on tomorrow or at the end of the week, but like today.
So I'm going to share something that I think I could see myself doing and like actually following through with. So I'm going to give your listeners a peek inside of your refrigerator. And I know you've done these before on Instagram, but I think what I've like appreciated about in the summer when we're together more during the day and I'm off is that like you can just pull things out of your fridge and like mix stuff up, and it's all like you just have like healthy things prepared, like the batch cooking, I think you call it. So you just have all of these things, but you still have the option of like mixing it how you want to. Like I don't love the idea of here's, Monday through Friday and I'm taking the same thing every day for lunch. Like I can't do that. My husband totally would do that, and he could probably do that, for 10 years, eat the same thing every day. I can't do that. So I think that's where I like that idea of like, if I have even 3 things prepared ahead of time that I can just like take and mix up how I want to that day, I think that's something that I could wrap my head around prepping. But
yeah. Right. Because you like variety and spontaneity. And I think that if you can come to this place of like creating, because you are really creative people, like taking your vision of health and creating it in a fun way that works for you, that's simplistic, that you don't have to put a lot of time into because you are busy doing other things, but that works for you. Like, I know the times that you've like roasted vegetables and some rice or whatever, and like you can just throw in leftovers to that. Like you do like the adventure of new food, and that really is important. But I think the overwhelming aspect of even like saying like, I'm going to meal plan this for this week can tend to be a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So instead of like every day just waking up like, okay, what is one thing I can do today? And maybe when you come to Sunday, you can say like, hey, something today that's going to make me feel really good, even all week long, is just, I'm just going to prep 4 things.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think too, like it's the purpose behind it. So cooking to me is not fun. Like it's a chore. And so if it's like, I don't want to do it then, so I'm going to like naturally try to get out of those things. So like in our house, my husband cooks pretty much all of the meals, which I appreciate because I definitely don't want to do it, but it's just not like food is something that I enjoy, but it's not something that I enjoy like planning for or preparing. I want someone else to do it for me.
So if we keep going, I have a few things that we kind of work together, and I want you to kind of expand on these to create these tips that a 7 can use, because 7s, you have to be able to like own who you are. So when I say that is to say like, you can't take the fun out of it and the spontaneity and the adventure out, but at the same time, you have to also be willing to like sit in your stillness, like have stillness and sit in your pain, right? Like that's a path to growth. So it's kind of this balance of not doing that all the time, because that can lead to unhealthy behavior in a 7 too. But it's having this balance of like creating stillness in your life so you can sit in the pain and feel things, but also at the other extreme, like still enjoying food, still enjoying your life, still relaxing and being able to separate yourself from pain is important. So we kind of came up with some healthy to-dos. I'm not going to list them all because you can grab them in the handout, but some ones that we talked about is like, instead of focusing so much on eating, an Enneagram 7 has a lot of energy. You're just high energy people. And having so much of that energy just sit inside of you can actually lead to anxiousness. Unspent energy in a 7 can cause anxiety. And that can kind of cause the spiral to get out of hand. And so one thing that is really important for a 7 to help kind of balance everything else in their life is really to expend energy, especially first thing in the morning. So it's just something we've talked about is like, hey, just let your diet go, because with healthy food, you are going to eat it. Like we're not questioning here whether you like healthy food or not, or whether you have the right mindset around food or not. Like, what's healthy and you will eat it. So what if we started focusing on just moving your body? Expand on that. What do you think about that still? So, like, you've had a little while to think about this.
Yeah. Like, I think that makes sense. Like, to me, I've got to like wrap a purpose around exercising, and it's got to be bigger than, like, to me, like, I'm going to exercise because I want to get healthy and look good. Like, that's not enough, right? Like it's got to be something bigger. But if I like connect it to a feeling, it makes me, more apt to do it, I guess. It's not like, I don't know. I don't want to like offend anyone, but sometimes I look at people that exercise for a half hour a day. I'm like, that's stupid. Like, why, like, honestly, like, I'm like, why are you spending a half hour of your day? Like, for what, like getting out and walking, like some of that stuff. Like, I get that. And I know that we, lead more sedentary
lives.
Yeah. That we, we don't get that natural exercise, I guess, or we're not moving our bodies as much. But yeah, like, I just didn't want to be that person that was like, oh, 5 a.m. I'm up. I'm working out. Like, I want to, but I don't. But I think if I think of it, like, I'm burning, and like, I'll feel better if I do this, then maybe that'll help.
What does that look like for you to like say, I'm going to exercise, focus on one thing rather than all the things?
Yeah. Like, focusing on one thing is huge, I think, because, 7s are great at making plans, but they're also great at breaking plans too. So, yeah, like, if I can just do one thing, like, I'm just going to do one thing. Like, that's been huge for me, I'm just going to focus on getting really good at one thing and finishing one thing that I start. So, that's the sevens MO too, is I'm going to start a lot of things, make a lot of plans, but I'm not going to finish anything.
Mm.
And so you just get into this pattern of, starting, stopping, or, whatever, which isn't good for any kind of health routine. So if I could just, instead of I'm going to eat healthy and exercise, if I'm just going to get up and I'm going to do this because, I'm going to be less anxious. Like for me, that's more of a motivator than I'm going to lose, 30 pounds or
right,
whatever.
Right.
That's not enough motivation for me.
Right. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about the body image thing really quick before we get back to those. Like when you say like your body image isn't enough for you to change, because for sevens are fairly confident, right? Like you're not out here to change for your body image, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say like, I wouldn't like to be 30 pounds lighter, but it doesn't consume my day. Like it doesn't, I don't feel like less of a person because I'm,
you're more motivated by pain than you are how you look.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you want to prevent cancer and things that could really cause a lot of pain in your life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like that long term, like, I don't want to be unhealthy in the long term. Like I don't want to end up, having to go through something painful because I chose, not to do something I should have now. Yeah. Like looks for me, I guess, it's if I want to look good, like I buy clothes that I like or whatever, like I'm not dressing the way I want to because I'm not the weight that I want to be. Like that's
right.
not
right. You're going to enjoy where you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of we have mentioned that like, it's really, really important for a 7 to focus on one thing at a time, because I feel like in your, surface levelness sounds really, not good, but you really spread yourself out.
Right. And I think it's that like, you want to give yourself lots of options. Like it's not just that you want to stay on the surface. It's that you don't want to be bored too. So it's not just an avoidance of pain. It's pain and boredom are kind of equal, I think, in terms of a 7. So me being bored is a similar like mental state to me being in pain.
Yeah. Right. So in that, like if you start focusing on one thing at a time, I think it's really important to train yourself that you can finish things, because there is a lot of momentum you can build and just getting yourself out of this. Well, I don't stick to anything, or, like you go into something and you kind of like, you have that sense of failure, almost underlying changes of like, well, I won't stick to it anyways, or, whatever. But if you pick one thing and you actually stick with it until the end, or stick with it until you make it a part of your life, I think that there is something to that snowball effect of like, and you always told me, you're like, you should create a program that's like the debt snowball of health, of like, okay, what's one small thing that leads to another thing? Like you could get behind that. And I think it is that like you do feel satisfied when you finish something.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I think about the things that the things in my life where I endured pain, or I endured uncomfortableness to get to the other side. Like those are some of my greatest accomplishments. So I think it's I know that if I do this, if I stick with this, like good things will come. It's just so easy when things get uncomfortable for a 7 just to reflexively, or I don't know if that's even a word, but to just get out of it. Like it's just 7s just as soon as things get uncomfortable, really good at getting out of things. And I think that goes into like another point that I wanted to make for 7s out there is I've had to think about when I'm turning to like a sugary food, or when I'm sleeping 30 minutes longer than I should have, like what's the heart issue of why I'm really doing that? Like what uncomfortable feelings am I avoiding? Mm-hmm. Because I'm experiencing pleasure to avoid something else, so am I eating something sugary because I'm like experiencing an uncomfortable emotion, and this is going to distract me from it. So like what distractions am I putting in my life that I need to just kind of step back and think about, like, what am I avoiding that I need to address in the moment instead of distracting myself from. And I think too, that's where like the sitting in quiet comes in with 7s, like that being bored is going to surface those uncomfortable things. And so I need to work on, and, I'm sure a lot of sevens like sitting in the boredom a little bit and sitting in that uncomfortable part, and kind of persevering through that to get to the heart of the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that was another thing, like sitting in the stillness and in your boredom. I think that I think you can easily distract yourself. Like you are very aware of people, but you can easily override that with distraction. So just allowing some space throughout your day, whether it is even through exercise, to hear that and to listen to that and to kind of start to trust that. So there are a lot of ways to do that. But another thing that is really great for sevens and every Enneagram type is getting in nature. And you've mentioned this before, and I think it's not that you have to do all of these things, but you can layer a lot of these things together. Like you can create your stillness and finish one thing you started, like even just using that in exercise, like just focusing on one thing tomorrow. And that is just moving your body in peace and quiet alone and doing it in nature.
Yeah. I think, sevens, I've read this in more than one place that sevens really do connect with nature and, enjoy, being outdoors and doing some things outside. And I think too, like I know when I'm outside for a little, my mood changes, like if I am feeling anxious or something like that, if I go outside and just, even if it's just a quick walk or something like that, like it does have a way of like making me feel a little more alive or whatever, soothing, I guess.
Right. And the last one that I want to mention is sevens are naturally very creative people. And I wonder what could happen with your health if you like, even your cooking, like you don't love to cook. And I don't know if that's characteristic or across sevens, but what if you even focused on like the creativity of that? Like finding something that's creative for you to do can actually help channel all of your energy in the right direction and make you healthier as a whole. So it doesn't have to just be cooking, but doing something that is creative is really important to get a seven healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that for you?
What's my creative outlet?
Yeah. You kind of distract yourself enough that I don't feel like you have one.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, is watching Netflix great?
No.
I feel like I'm like the Picasso of that.
The Picasso of watching Netflix.
The Van Gogh of Netflix.
Something to work on. Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know really, I guess, what my creative outlet is. I don't feel like, I think because I'm married to an artist, I don't see myself or, I see myself as being creative because I'm comparing it, or like you're a really good artist too. Like I think of being creative and being artistic as the same thing. And I know that's not
right.
Not the case. So yeah, I don't really know. I guess I just I fill my free time with distractions. So maybe when I work on being a little bored, maybe
something will come to you.
Yeah, maybe something will come to me. Yeah. Maybe we can have a follow-up podcast of Creativity Hour with Whitney.
You start that podcast and all your sevens will listen to it. But okay, you've known about the Enneagram for a long time, and I'm going to kind of throw you under the bus here because you're my sister. I feel like you've known about this boredom piece for a while, and I feel like you still fight it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, have you successfully focused on boredom?
No. I mean, sevens have FOMO though too. So, I mean, in this season that I'm in of raising kids and, my husband's trying to start a business and all of those things, my life is full of distractions, and the first chance I get to go out and do something fun, I'm taking it. So, that's what 2020 is going to be about for me is living in boredom a little bit. And I'm told, shout out to my girl, Michaela. I'm told that if I start to get uncomfortable in my boredom, that I'm on the right track. So I think just sitting in the boredom and know that when things get uncomfortable, not going to that, I'm going to do something that distracts me. Let's go out to eat, or, I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to watch Netflix. yeah, like just sitting in it and processing what does quiet look like, even if it's uncomfortable.
Right. And I feel like we all have those things that we have to sit in, like those pains that are going to help us grow. Like for me, as a 2, I love to be reassured of things, like where we stand in our relationships. And like, you would classify that being a 7 as needy. And
You're
one
doing a good
thing,
job,
you can
Alexa.
go ahead and make a comment. But one thing that I really do have to work on is not asking for constant reassurance, but trusting myself enough to be confident where I am on my own. You are the opposite. Like you are very confident as you are, but you have to trust that sitting in your silence will
Yeah.
produce
Well, I
something,
think
not just
too,
pain.
like maybe that's where I'm just having this thought on the moment, but maybe that's where like 7s like are confident, like that ignorance is bliss. Like I'm confident because I'm not super self-aware. Like if I was more self-aware, maybe I wouldn't be so confident. People look at 7s and they're like, wow.
Okay. So what grace do you feel like Enneagram 7s need to give themselves?
7s, I don't feel like are typically super hard on themselves. Like I'm not, this sounds terrible, but if something goes poorly, I'm more thinking about like, what did someone else do to make this go poorly? Because it couldn't possibly be me. No, I'm kidding. Don't share that. Gosh, where am I hard on myself? I think like I do get frustrated with myself when I don't follow through. Like I'm not like, I don't live in the frustration. I think that's where like, I don't think 7s live in a state of like, woe is me. So I think it's hard to pinpoint like where we are hard on ourselves, but I think that like following through, like I think 7s are great at knowing exactly what they need to do. It's doing them, So for me, I know what I need to do and I get frustrated with myself when I don't do it after the fact, but I don't live in that and it doesn't stick around long enough for me to actually do it right the second time, like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I could see that too. You do get frustrated by the lack of follow through.
Yeah.
But again, I think that goes back to like, if you just pick one thing to focus on, I feel like you could really do a great job and settle that in instead of trying to just you're kind of like I would consider you an all or nothing person, or you were my, like, I'm going to start on Monday person. Like, I'll just pick back up on Monday.
Yeah.
And you do it for like 2 hours and then you're like, I'll just start again tomorrow or whatever. Like you just ditch it instead of just saying like, okay, it's just an evolution of what I do over time, right? Like it's not a make or break. Like nothing I'm going to do is going to make or break my plan. It's just kind of keeping your focus on the everyday rather than this big overarching thing that you want to achieve.
Yeah. And I think that's for 7s. They go to like a 1, like the unhealthy aspects of the 1. I think that's where that kind of comes in of that, like, I'll start Monday, or if I'm not going to do it right, then I'm not going to do it at all. Like that's the unhealthy 1 talking.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think 7s go to like a healthy 5, and so and my husband's a 5. So I really try to think about like, what are things that he does well and try to like emulate that in my own life. So yeah, that like expert level, really like getting yourself into one thing and seeing that one thing through is what I'm trying to focus on. But with that comes uncomfortable, getting to an expert level status at anything you're going to struggle. Like things are going to get uncomfortable. Things are going to probably get boring at some points too. So it's persevering through those things.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what encouragement would you like to give other Enneagram 7s?
Just keep rocking it. You guys are awesome. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know. Encouragement for 7s. I think just, I don't know that 7s need to be encouraged so much as I feel like maybe it's because I'm a 7. I think 7s just need to slow down a little bit. Like that would be my thing for 7s is just like slow down just everything, like I even think of 7 sometimes, like we talk fast even. So, just slowing down, like listening to people. Yeah. I don't know. Does that sound?
Yeah. And okay, people who aren't sevens, sometimes we struggle to encourage you. So how would you like us to encourage sevens for those of us who aren't sevens?
I think sevens sometimes like feel pressure to be that like entertainer. And sometimes, I don't know, like maybe it's because I was thinking about going on this podcast, like, oh, like I feel like I'm going to have to be like the funniest one on here, or, like I'm not going to be, but, I feel like pressure to entertain people. And I think like with sevens, sometimes just that like knowing that you don't have to be on when you're around people, like that, like it's okay not to be okay maybe, or like kind of embracing that. I don't know. I'm not
embracing that 5.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I don't know. Does that sound right? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's okay. Like, or, yeah.
How could we encourage you to do that?
That's more of a 7 thing of being like not thinking so much about yourself. Go scratch what I just said. I don't know what could say.
What do you like people like me to do to you or tell you or say to you or help you?
I think sevens like encouragement in terms of like finishing things, like sticking with it without making it seem like a rule bound or like I have to do it, but just reminding me why I'm doing it, So yeah, like, and helping me stick to what I said I was going to do, like that accountability piece, I guess. Accountability, that's the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Just encouragement.
Be accountable without making it feel like that delicate line of holding me accountable without making it feel like a job that I have to do. Then it becomes a rule that I'm having to follow.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Well, Whitney, you've been a wealth of knowledge, not super entertaining, but a wealth of knowledge. I'm just joking. On the podcast. What? Did I just stab you in the heart?
I'll get over it.
Okay. Before we go, we have a few quick fire things and then
yay.
But what's the first thing you do every morning for your health? You can't say lay in bed.
Brush my teeth.
This is probably one area that you should work on.
Brush my teeth. That's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
Oral hygiene is part of being healthy.
I mean, it's the small things in life. Yeah. What's your favorite book that has helped you? This is another hilarious question for sevens because you don't love to finish books either.
No, unless it's really good. I typically.
So what's a book that's really good that you've actually read front to back?
I love Crazy Love by Frances Chan. That's like one of my faves.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you had an answer for that. I was getting nervous that all these questions you weren't going to be able to answer. Okay. The last question I will ask you is, what is one thing that that other people might not know about Enneagram 7s that you want to share?
So like one thing about sevens, I think that not a lot of people know unless you really get into the 7 is that although we seem confident, we can be super insecure. And Alexa knows this about me too, but like analyzing social situations, I think is something that like sevens might appear to be super confident in social situations. But then when you leave and go home or whatever and have to sit in quiet, like you're analyzing like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Or should I said that? Did they think it was funny? Did they not? Or, like, do they like me? Do they not? Like that insecurity about making sure people like you and all that. Does that sound okay?
Yep. That is so accurate and spot on. So sometimes you just got to rub it off and know that it's just a 7 thing. Just like I have to rub things off and know it's just a 2 thing. We all have our quirks. And I think that's why the Enneagram can help is that we can know and understand, okay, this is just me on the Enneagram and I can work through this and get better because of this.
I think, and I think getting to know the people that you're closest to too and what theirs are. Because I think Alexa and I frequently, when we're spiraling into our Enneagram worst traits, we can just say like, stop it, you're being a 7 or stop it, you're being a 2. And just know like, okay, that's my perception, but it's not maybe reality. So.
Right. Okay, Whitney, I'm glad you were able to come on the show and share more about you. I'm sure everyone left feeling so inspired. No, but you actually did open my eyes. I still am learning things about 7s and I think they're really awesome people and super fun to be around, regardless if you have to be fun or not. You are really awesome, 7. So
Yay.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay, that was it with my sister Whitney. I'm so thrilled that she was here. Honestly, just to be truthful, the Enneagram has been the best relationship booster between us. We used to have an epic, all-out, throw-down fight once or twice a year, and I think it was just because we didn't quite understand that we were just so different that we didn't think the way each other thought. And this has really, again, verged our gap to say like, okay, this is just how you work, and this is how I work, and this is how I can encourage you, and this is how you can encourage me. Really has created more harmony in our life to understand each other, and it has changed things. So with that being said, I do encourage you, if you're not an Enneagram 7, thank you so much for listening and being encouraged by them, and also going out to encourage other Enneagram type 7s. If you are a 7, I challenge you to go listen to some of the other Enneagram types, especially your spouse, maybe your sister, your parents, your children, and start to get an understanding of them. Because we're all just slightly different and we need different things in the world. We have different fears and strengths and weaknesses. And if we could just own who each other are outside of all of our differences, I think this world could be a better place. So again, I thank Whitney for being on. We definitely didn't have any bickering fest this time, so that was fantastic. She's been on a few other times where that wasn't the case. I can link those up in the show notes, but I thank you so much for tuning in to the Ennea Health series. Don't forget, if you love this episode, take a screenshot, share it on social media. Make sure you tag me at Alexa Sherm as well. I would love to see what you thought of this show. So thank you in advance for doing that. Make sure you head to the show notes at simpleritswellness.com/194 to get all of the notes on today's show, as well as that free handout for Enneagram Type 7.